Wyatt. I'm from Wayland, and
stand
I
up?
would
Can
like
you
to thank
stand up?
everybody thank you all for coming out. I have 3 kids in school. I have an 11th grader and I have 2 8th graders. I grew up in an education family. My dad was on the faculty in the School of Education at BU. My mother was a K through 12 teacher. And I've been studying the Common Core situation for over a year and trying to figure out what is going on here, what is really behind it. And I think one of the factors that's giving us all stomach acid is we have a common understanding, which maybe we don't talk about what is the purpose of education. And we have a perception that as our kids are going through the education process, each child should be able to maximize their potential. They're getting as much English literature as they can get. They're getting as much mathematics as they can get. They're getting as much science as they can possibly learn, given their abilities and the amount of work that they put into it. And there's a disconnect that's going on with Common Core. And in Common Core, what's giving us stomach acid is we're seeing ways in which the expectations are being lowered.
Yes.
I have a theory about this, and I think what's going on is the essence of Common Core is rationing. It is rationing education. It is rationing learning. Why is it doing that? Why would we ration instead of pumping every kid as full as we can with knowledge? Why would we do this? And I think I just figured it out. And Jamie, it's in your Wall Street Journal article. 4th paragraph in this is fantastic. This is the missing piece of the puzzle, I think. And it says, Common Core recycles a decades-old top-down approach to education. Its roots are in a letter sent to Hillary Clinton by Mark Tucker, president of the National Center on Education and the Economy after Bill Clinton's presidential victory in 1992. The letter laid out a plan to remold the entire American system into a centralized one run by a system of labor market boards at the local, state, and federal levels where curriculum and job matching will be handled by government functionaries. I think this is the end game. The end game is a system by which you'll have a government entity deciding who is permitted to work, who will be allowed to work, not what, a job market that decides who's most qualified for this position over here and what can we pay. No, it'll be a government entity will decide you're allowed to work, you're not allowed to work. And if you're allowed to work, here's where you're allowed to work, and here's what you can be paid. It's a whole different system. There are systems like this. You can find this in Cuba.
It's a
Yeah, and,
It's a European system.
Well, it's a Cuban system. It's a.
but I think you're right. One of the things I want to be clear about is that this is it's not a partisan issue. There's no question about it that as wrote in that piece, I think there's a lot of the players around Common Core have been kicking around Washington D.C. for decades. Some of them are Republicans and some of them are Democrats. As much as Achieve Inc. and the CCSSO and the Governors Association have been advocating for this more workforce development centric model, so is the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, and so have been people like Jeb Bush. And so while I specifically cite the Mark Tucker letter, which I think is a very revealing, decades-old long letter, the people that are behind this absolutely believe that K-12 education shouldn't be for what I was talking about earlier as being this sort of liberal arts oriented wellspring of citizenship. It definitely is a workforce development model. And they really, I think, earnestly believe that this is not only the way to reform education, but to help the country compete. And it definitely has a kind of more European outlook. One of the best examples that I have as a contrast is that our neighbors to the north, Canada, have a very decentralized system of education. Each province, or the equivalent of our states, controls their own educational destiny. They don't have a national Department of Education. And even though the architects of the U.S. Department of Education put some limits on it, the fact is that these players in Washington, D.C. never really stopped advocating for a growing role. That's what they do. They think they're in D.C., that that's where the action is, and that they're going to fix it. I guess the thing, sort of in summary, that is troubling to me, if you look at Achieve Inc., which runs PARC, and you look at the Governors Association and the Council of Chief State School Officers and Mark Tucker and left of these other folks, is that while Massachusetts has learned things since 1993, right? We took a different path and learned new things along the way, right? These guys are stuck in like 1991 or 1992. They can't get over the fact that there's actually been states that have boosted their standards and have boosted student achievement, and that there might be a different way to go. And they really just, they keep digging in further and further. And it's also in their self-interest, because the fact is that the more they stay in DC, the more money that's, circulates around it, and it's a self-perpetuating circle. And I do think, is my opinion, that the fact that they have gotten as far as they have with Common Core and try to push the ball down the field on this sort of workforce development model is itself a commentary about how we hold our public officials of either party accountable. That's really what's at stake here, is that can these trade organizations dictate to parents in states and localities what's going to be taught, what's going to be tested, and how the teachers are going to be evaluated. And I think they're banking on people not doing anything and letting them do it. I think the optimism of the Anti-Common Core effort and the work of Don and others, which I think is remarkable, and it's all over the country, is they're saying, no, you can't. You can take our money, but you cannot have our children. And it's because I think that you're exactly right. They want to kind of track kids in different directions. And it's a long answer, but I think you're right. You hit the nail on the head.
We have